I want to talk about nutrition for a minute, which is, of course, why this stack is here. I wrote a full liquid nutrition, full liquid for a 17 hours, 49-minute, or let's call it 18 hours, just to make the math easy.
And I like the way you defined your all liquid as you didn't have anything that needed chewing.
Yeah, no bars, no sandwiches, burritos. I mean, most brevet riders, they eat solid foods on anything beyond a 300-kilometer event. By the way, Jess, I love you. You also sagged for my 300-kilometer event, but we will stick with this 400K for now. Let's talk about my nutrition just for a moment because folks need to know what I planned for and how I did. I planned for about 300 calories per hour, 18 hours, right? Okay, how did I do on that? Well, I did 3,600 calories of bottle, stuff in my bottles. Then I did 450 in gels, so base 3 gels. Then I did 3 sleeves of Cliff Blocks and 2 Cokes. 4,890 calories is what I took in. It was basically a 7,000 kilojoule day. So, of course, you're never going to eat as much as you are expending. So, anyone out there who says, oh, I don't want to take in that many calories, I don't want to gain weight while riding, listen, you're always going to burn more calories than you can take in and digest. So that came out to 272 calories per hour, and my target was right around there, about 300 calories per hour. And I just did that in a very organic way. When I was hungry, I ate. When I was thirsty, I drank. 600 calories per bottle of usually 400 to 500 calories of Rev energy, and then I added some Tailwind for electrolytes. So if anyone's out there thinking, oh, I can't ride 6-hour Century on just liquid fuel, you can. You can, and I did almost 18 hours. I've done longer, but for this particular video, 18 hours. My stomach was perfect for all of the 18 hours. Never had any queasiness, never had any gastric issues. Of course, I'm using my product. Never had any gas. So everything was great for my stomach. We'll talk hopefully later about Aaron having a sour stomach in the finishing 40-ish miles of the event. But, so Jess, I left Palomar. What did you do after I left Palomar?
Oh, well, after you left, I just packed everything back up into my vehicle and I double checked that I wasn't leaving anything. Because it just feels like I'm so unorganized. It feels like there's like stuff everywhere, and I'm like, okay, did I leave the selfie stick? No.
Oh my God, the selfie stick.
No. Yeah.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Oh yeah, we can talk about it, but we can't show it because we're actually
using
it right now.
So one of the wonderful things, and I didn't even think about how difficult this might be, but Jess was able to set up the selfie stick at each one of the controls and then video our interaction at that control. That's a video that's still coming. But do you want to talk about how difficult that might have been for you?
No, not really. I mean, it just, it's harder than it looks because, I'll talk about it just for like 5 seconds, but I just wanted to try to make sure I had both hands free and available to assist George when he came into the control. but at the same time, you want to get footage. So basically, you want to find a place where you can set up your camera and hit record to try to capture some of what's happening at the control point while not neglecting my athlete. So
Right, because in the end, the most important thing is taking care of me at the control.
right. I mean, the footage is all, this is secondary, you know,
Yeah.
it's just like fun. It's like the fun of like talking with your mates about an event that you all did together after it's done. It's like, oh, remember when that happened? Remember when that happened? And it's always extra special if you have some video of it. But the most important thing is trying to get you to the finish.
Yeah. So I remember you mentioned, okay, I had to park somewhere in the shade. I had to get the camera set up. I had to do, I mean, you did a lot before I even got there, because as you will see in the video, and I kept a lot of the control time. I kept a lot of that in there. I didn't spend much time in the control. So she had to, or Jessica had to take care of me because I'm in and out as much as possible. As when I got to each one of these controls, Jess had this cowbell. And I have to tell you, when you're quite a bit disorientated,
Taxed, if you will.
your brain is taxed. You've been following all these left, right. You're going up all these steep climbs or whatever. And then you're like, okay, I got to be close to that control. I have to be close. It's got to be somewhere around here. And then there's Jess with a big smile on her face and that cowbell. And I'm like, okay,
This
yes.
cowbell.
And I'm like, oh my God, there it is.
Woohoo.
And it's just these little things. It's just these little things. So thank you for having that cowbell there. So when I got to Escondido, which was 116 miles into the event, 187 kilometers into the event, by that time I had already done 11,600 feet of climbing.
Yeah.
This thing was brutal. This event was brutal.
It was also brutal for me. And, you know, it was brutal when I pulled into the control a few hours ahead of George and parked my car. And I was like, oh, let's go see what's going on here. How am I going to kill these few hours? And there was a body piercing
Oh,
joint in this particular plaza. And I was like, I had this great idea. I haven't told you about this. So anyway, I went into the tattoo place, the body piercing place, and as luck would have it, their piercer was not on that day. So they're like, we can't do piercings, but we could get you a new tattoo if you want. And I'm like, no, just the earrings. So anyway, then I just sat in the parking lot and I waited for people from the brevet to come in. And the first person in was not George. Aaron was the first rider into this control. Also, the only other thing I have to note about this control is this time I put ice in the cooler. So there was ice in the cooler with some cans of Coke, and Aaron was first, and I did not have earrings, and I was waiting for George.
Zach, little pig boy, at that point started become MIA. I guess he had some back issues. Let's see what time I got to that control. I got there at 2:30 p.m. So about 8.5 hours into the ride. Escondido, yeah, it's 116.4 miles, 11,600 feet of climbing, or 3,546 meters. Anyway, I'm pretty hot. My feet are starting to hurt. I've not had my feet hurt in my lake cycling shoes, I think, ever.
I've never heard you complain about your feet.
Yes, and so I've
This
loosened
is
them
the
up.
first time.
Yeah, I've loosened them up, the boas, and I'm thinking, oh God, my feet. If my feet are hurting, as you know, you can't freaking pedal with force, right? So anyway, so I'm like, okay, let's keep rolling because eventually it's going to cool off. Now, we haven't had too many sunny days. It's weird. This is San Diego. I want my sunshine tax back. When I was climbing Colgrave, which is a very steep climb, I thought I was completely off the back of this event. And here comes the little pig boy who passes me. Now, Colgrade is before this Escondido stop, so I'm thinking he's up the road. And I had no idea where Erin was. And when I get to Escondido, she says, oh, I haven't seen Zach, little pig boy. Erin has come through. Now, what did you tell me about making friends?
I was thrilled to find that it was very easy for me to make friends with these other riders by simply having a cold Coke to offer them.
Oh, one thing. On my way to that Escondido control, I thought about Tommy. Because the route we took...
Tommy
Yeah.
Southwood.
Tommy Southwood. The route we took was the same route we took when we rode with Tommy. So we came down Palomar, we went up Colgrade, Valley Center.
Oh, remember how
All of
cold
that.
and rainy it was? And
Oh.
I was freezing. I mean, we were soaking wet by the time it came to descend that mountain.
Yeah.
It was, no one had rain jackets. And
Oh, it was just...
yeah, Tommy was just like, man,
Yeah.
he's awesome.
He is awesome. So Tommy Southwood, I was thinking about you. Oh, did you want to cross some of these off?
Yeah. We got to get caught up here.
We got to get caught up. So we've done Palomar control. We did Escondido control.
Done.
Now we're on our way to Fallbrook.
Right.
Now, on the way to Fallbrook, I was alone. And I'm thinking to myself, because I rode about 140 miles alone, I'm thinking, where is everybody? Now, this happens on brevets all the time. You spend a lot of time riding alone.
Yeah, well, there aren't that many people to start. I mean,
There aren't,
only like,
yeah.
what, 6, 9 of you?
8, yeah, 8, and 3 DNF'd. So you're looking at, like, it's funny because I'll see if I can add this in post. There is a line in the brevet rules, and it says you're on your own personal journey. I may not have quoted that properly, but you get the idea. And you're out there. So let's talk about getting to the Fallbrook control. And if anyone is local, you know Fallbrook has a lot of steep climbs. And I'm riding alone for a while. I see Aaron on the side of the road as I'm going up on just one of the many steep climbs. And he's sitting in the shade and he's kind of adjusting his cleat. And I'm thinking, what's going on there? So I get into that control. Oh, we go up this road, Alvarado Road, so steep.
I mean, are you like, when you see him there, you know he's having some mechanical issue, aren't you like, yes,
Yes.
now's my chance.
Right. Now, the crazy thing is that in brevets, you're always supposed to be thinking about the other rider because everyone is typically unsupported in the boonies because that's how these routes are. But when I saw him, he actually encouraged me. He was like, hey, George, go. Oh, and he's sitting in the shade on the other side of the road because there's no shade on the outbound direction.
And
So
you're
I'm
like,
okay,
yeah, all
all
right,
right.
I will go.
I will
Sorry
go.
about whatever you're working on, but, this is an
this
event,
is what it is.
so-
If he would have needed help, he would have said, hey, do you have, or something. But he was like, hey, George. And, so I kept going. I get to the control. I get in. And there's Jess with the cowbell, and I'm like, okay, there it is. Pull over. And I've got a little table that at some point I need to start integrating it into our talk. But the longest time I ever spent at any control was like 9 or so minutes. That Fallbrook control, when I saw him pulling in, I was out of there. It was like
now's my cue.
like now's my cue. And I think that control, I think I only spent, I think it was like 4 something. Yeah, 4 minutes and 52 seconds. That's all I spent at that control. And at that point, I've already ridden 140 something miles with how many? At that point, yeah, 13,791 feet and 4,200 meters. And yet, 10 and a half hours, I'm thinking, I got to get out of here. Aaron just pulled in. I got to get out of here.
Well, so my notes for that Fallbrook control are that that's actually the first control where I actually was waiting at the roadside with the beat on, waiting for George to come in with the cowbell. It was the first time that I had like my act together enough to be like, okay, I'm gonna have this cowbell, and so there, and then the first words. I think the first words out of George's mouth when he came into that Fallbrook control.
Somehow I'm in the front.
You're the first one here. Like, couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. But yeah. So
yeah, as miserable as I felt on Palomar, for you to tell me I was the first one into Fallbrook, I was like, wait, I'm in the front?
Yeah. It was. I was also like, wow. Okay. I mean, it was just
tortoise in the hair.
Oh, tortoise in the hair. And then the very last thing about that Fallbrook stop is when Aaron did come in, he, we were like, hey, good job, way to go. And he went into the convenience store at the control and came out, and I wish I had taken a little time to like notice what he had purchased. But he came out and he sat down on the curb and he had a couple bottles of liquids of various kinds. And I don't know what kind of, I don't even remember if he had any solid food. Probably. I'll have to ask him.
He did, yeah.
But it was actually about then that I started thinking, I'm like, that convenience store food is pretty pricey. And I mentioned this to George later as I'm like, it's kind of nice to have a SAG there, where, you can spend just as much money on a 12-pack of Coke as you would buying like, 1 or 2 single Cokes in the store. And the other thing is it made me think of is the cost analysis, whatever, of the fuel product that George and I and a bunch of other people using in their bottles, actually you come out ahead financially versus going into a convenience store and paying convenience store prices for all the stuff that's there. So I just had that written in my notes, and that is all I have for the control at Fallbrook.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Fallbrook to then San Clemente, which was the northernmost point of the control. And Jess took, thank you for keeping us on track.
Okay.
So now we leave Fallbrook. Fallbrook is mile 141, or what did I say?
A long way.
227 kilometers. And we had a 46-mile section getting to San Clemente. And so when we reach San Clemente, it's 187 miles or 301 kilometers. Now, that is windy. So we've done this massive amount of climbing on the front end, and now we've got a lot of wind. And I'm still riding alone. Like I mentioned, 45 miles with 4 guys, then riding alone for 140 miles. Eventually, because I was in first at Fallbrook, out of Fallbrook, as Aaron comes in, now Aaron eventually catches me about 10 miles from San Clemente. And he's like, oh, I've been chasing you since Fallbrook. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking to myself the whole time, I just did a 300-kilometer event with Brooke. The two of us working together the whole day, 9,000-foot day, 2,760 meters, and we traded pulls and worked together the whole day. Here we are, Aaron and I beating each other up, and I'm thinking, why is he chasing me? Why is this? We could be working together. But the thing about endurance cyclists, and in particular ultra cyclists and brevet riders, they like to ride alone. I don't know why. I was just continuing to stay on the road at my pace. We could have been working together for hours and hours and hours. Anyway, he finally catches me about 10 miles from 300-kilometer turnaround, or 187 miles. And he gets into that control of San Clemente. I've got some video of this. Jess, you were there a little early, of course. And tell me about, the sunset, the food. Tell me about all that, because I'm happy you got that time for yourself.
Oh, me too. Okay, so when I got to the San Clemente control, I was starving.
Yeah.
I hadn't eaten all day. I remember I fed George breakfast, but I didn't have breakfast in the morning.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
I didn't have any snacks in the car. I didn't have any food. I didn't
Oh,
stop
my
anywhere.
goodness. I
I
didn't know
literally
that.
hadn't eaten since like dinner the night before. So I was starving, and so I was like, I need to find someplace to eat. So I found a little pizza place that sold pizza by the slice. I had to stop for food. So I found a little pizza place that's just a block away from the next control, so I could get a slice of pizza. They sell pizza by the slice, which is really awesome. And if you happen to watch the video compilation of this talk, you'll see me there at the table. The sunset is coming off the camera, and I'm eating my pizza, and I'm so happy. It's so good.
It's 6-something in the afternoon, in the evening.
Yeah, and it was honest. It was so good, and was really reasonable too. It was only like it was under $5 for like this huge slice of like this amazing pizza with all this mean cheese. It was really good.
Yeah.
So I did
Add
that.
all the meat.
Yeah, all the meat.
Sorry, vegetarians, but we
all
eat
the
meat
meat
here.
and extra cheese. And then after that, I checked George's location on the GPS, and I could see I had at least an hour till he would be in the vicinity. So, and I also noticed the sun was starting to come down, and there was the beach right over the PCH, the Pacific Coastal Highway. So I just found a crosswalk. I made sure my car was all locked up, and I walked across, and there was a nice beach over there where I took a little bit of video. Again, if you watch the compilation.
Yes.
There's like this huge sun.
Yeah.
It is like setting on the beach, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm like seeing this right now. My hair is all crazy because the wind's blowing, and I've been up since 2 a.m. And it's, but so at that point, the question was, who will make it to this control point first? A, Aaron, B, George, or C, sunset?